following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. This is Comfortably Zoned Radio, and it's time for Dodgers baseball. A tale of two cities, from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. My name is Peter Trunk, and my partner is Ron Rabinovitz, and my brand new partner is no stranger to the show, but he's going to be here every week, Robert Cole. Let me say hello to Robert first, Ronnie, if you don't mind. Robert, how you doing?
Absolutely.
Doing very good, Peter. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. We enjoy, at least I'll speak for myself, I enjoy your other podcasts about the New York Mets, and I know that you're a great podcaster, so welcome aboard. Ronnie, how are you feeling?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Peter. Robert, welcome to the show.
Oh,
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
Be good to have you.
Yes, it is. It definitely is good to have you. I think I'm going to start the show off. I want to talk a little Brooklyn before we go out to the left coast and talk about those Los Angeles Dodgers. I think we're going to talk a little bit Brooklyn Dodgers, and I'll let Robert start us off. Robert, is there anything bouncing around in your Dodger brain? I know you're a Dodger file, Brooklyn Dodger file from the word go. Is there anything that you'd like to, it doesn't even have to be related. You could say something in one sentence and a totally different subject in another sentence, as long as it has to do with those Brooklyn Dodgers or the borough of Brooklyn. Go right ahead. Feel free.
Okay. Well, today is a rather sad day. Okay, 62 years ago today, the Brooklyn Dodgers, at the behest of Walter O'Malley, announced the trading of Jackie Robinson to the hated New York Giants for a little-known journeyman pitcher by the name of Dick Littlefield and $35,000. And, of course, as we know, the way the story turned out, Jackie had sold the story of his retirement to Look magazine, and he was bound to secrecy and couldn't announce the retirement, so he had to go along with this trade, even though he begged Buzzy Bavesi not to announce the trade until after the first of the year. The trade was announced anyway. And then, of course, as we later learned, Jackie did retire and caused a lot of bitter feelings between him, Bavesi, and O'Malley, and whether he was going to play for the Giants or not play for the Giants. And, of course, he stuck to his guns, retired, and went to work for Chock-full of Nuts Coffee. We'll talk a little bit more about Jackie in a couple of minutes. But also around the same time, again in 1956, the wonderful Walter O'Malley sold Ebbets Field to Marvin Cratter, a developer and construction man, and that basically sealed the doom on both Ebbets Field and the Brooklyn Dodgers at that time. So today is sort of a bittersweet day.
Very bittersweet.
Dodger memory.
Yeah. Most days when we talk about the Brooklyn Dodgers or even think about the Brooklyn Dodgers, it's bittersweet. I'd like to comment on the Jackie trade to show once again for like the millionth time what a great man he was, what a strong character he had. He actually, like you said, Robert, he knew that he was never going to play for the Giants. He knew that he had signed the contract and had to deal with Chock-full of Nuts Coffee. And he also had promised, a handshake promise with Chock-full of Nuts, that he wouldn't say anything about it until January 1st. And since the deal went down in mid-December, Jackie actually played along with it by posing for pictures for the Daily News, the New York Post, and the Daily Mirror, and the New York Times, and the World Herald Tribune, holding a Giants pennant, posing with a first baseman's glove. He actually rode the rails, so to speak. He actually he knew that the newspapers and the newsmen, which were they were just doing their job. They had a job to do, and he actually fulfilled some of their requests by doing it. He could have just, told him, don't come near my house. I don't want any pictures. I don't want any interviews. I don't want any photographs in the paper or whatever. But he actually played the game along. He strung them along a little bit, and he did that. The other comment I'd like to make on the O'Malley sale of Ebbets Field, there are a lot of Dodger revisionist history guys, most of whom are much younger than our ages. We all fluctuate around the age of 70 here, but there are much younger guys who read a book or two about O'Malley and the Brooklyn Dodgers, and they're totally convinced that the sale of Ebbets Field by O'Malley was just his final attempt to get the city to build him a stadium where, as we know, Robert Colt, Ron Rabinovitz, and myself and others, a host of others, know that that's all bullshit. He didn't do that to try to force a deal. O'Malley had his mind up to go to Los Angeles a long time before he sold Ebbets Field. A long time before. Would you agree with me, Robert?
Oh, yes. And he not only sold Ebbets Field, he also sold the ballpark in Montreal and the ballpark in Fort Worth, which the team also owned. And
when he sold the ballpark in Fort Worth, it's my understanding that he didn't really, quote unquote, sell that franchise. He swapped franchises with the Cubs and Mr. Phil Wrigley for the Los Angeles Angels because he wanted to have priority in the area for Los Angeles and the surrounding area for the move to Los Angeles.
Well, he actually did sell the ballpark. Okay, part of that swap was not the ballpark in Fort Worth. Okay, what he did was swapped teams.
Yeah.
And it was done at such a last minute that the Dodgers, some of the Dodger employees at Fort Worth wound up staying there. While the Cubs were actually operating out of Fort Worth. So it was a real strange deal. It was done quickly. O'Malley was concerned because there was talk of letting the Pacific Coast League become a third major league, and he knew if that happened, he'd lose that opportunity, and so he jumped at that moment.
Yeah, he did. He did do that, and it's amazing that more people than Dick Young and maybe a couple others saw through O'Malley and knew what, the guy was basically full of hot air.
Right.
When you see a guy like O'Malley in Los Angeles underneath a palm tree posing for a photograph wearing a button that says keep the Dodgers in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You want to crawl into that picture and punch him square in his face.
Right.
Dick Young wasn't fooled. A lot of other people were. And sadly enough, to this day, a lot of people are fooled.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they are. There are a lot of them.
As far back as 1950, 1950, Branch Rickey was out in Los Angeles looking at ball players. O'Malley went with him. Okay, it was in the summertime. And that's when the third partner, John Smith, passed away. They ran back to go to the funeral. But you have to ask, what was O'Malley doing in Los Angeles? Well, he was probably looking around.
Well, this is a great story. But can I just interject something here?
Absolutely.
Sure.
John Smith was a sick man. And Bavasi asked him, he said, John Smith wants to go to L.A. with you and Branch. and O'Malley said to him, "Do you know how much it costs to fly a dead body cross country?"
Huh.
And that's why John Smith didn't go to. That's why John Smith didn't make the trip to L.A.
Wow.
Just another little anecdote on what a wonderful, wonderful man Walter O'Malley was. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Robert. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem, no problem. But you have to ask, Branch Rickey, of course, was there to look at ball players. Walter O'Malley wouldn't know the back of a ball player from the front of a ball player. So why he was out there, no one really knows.
Right.
And you could, presume at that time he was already, thinking about things. Once John Smith passed away, unbeknownst to a lot of people, he had already made an agreement with John Smith that he would take over for Mrs. Smith's holdings in the Dodgers. And he
that Deary?
Yes. Yeah, Deary. No. Deary Mulvey was the
Oh, I'm
third.
sorry. Got them mixed up. That's why you're on my show, our show. That's why you are the show, Robert Cole. I'm saying Deary Smith is Deary Mulvey. That's a whole other bag of popcorn.
Right.
Thank you. Go ahead. Continue.
And also, not to pop your balloon, Peter, because it is your show, but that story about John Smith was actually about a different man, on the trip to Japan. When the Dodgers went to Japan after the 56th World Series.
56th season, yeah.
An old elderly gentleman who was part of the Brooklyn Dodger entourage and family desperately wanted to go to Japan with the team. And when the traveling secretary, gave O'Malley the list of people that wanted to go, he said, oh, no, he can't go. Do you realize how sick he is and how much it would cost to ship a body back from Japan?
Robert Cole, that only proves what my father used to say, and I know he didn't coin the phrase, but he used to say it a lot. A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, and that's me, your friend Peter Trunk. And it is not my show; it is our show. Ron Rabinovitz, Robert Cole, and Peter Trunk. Anyway, let's get back to.
I've got a couple
off of O'Malley. If you don't mind, I'd like to get off of O'Malley for a second, and get to the sale of Ebbets Field. When Ratter bought Ebbets Field, Robert, what was he planning to do with it? And what did he? Well, we ultimately know what he did with it. But what was he? Were there any other plans for Ebbets Field?
No. Cratter bought it with the intention of building apartments, supposed middle income apartments.
All right.
He, however, said that I'm a baseball fan first, and as long as they want the ballpark to remain, I'm more than happy to put off my plans for the apartments, and we'll leave Ebbets Field there.
Right. He was ready to lease the field. He was ready to lease the field if the deal fell through in L.A. back to O'Malley. I remember that.
Well, actually, he did. O'Malley had signed a lease to play in 1956. In 1957. Also to play again in 1958, if necessary. And then O'Malley took another lease back, which allowed him to have the lease until 1960. What that did was that allowed O'Malley to control what went on there. Nothing could be done in Ebbets Field without O'Malley's because he basically held the lease and the rights to let anybody in there that he wanted. And that was the agreement. He kept that.
So they go ahead.
He kept Ebbets Field up until days after he got the vote in L.A. to officially give him the property. And as soon as that happened, he told Marvin Cratter, tear it down. And Marvin Cratter.
Which, by the way, that vote in L.A., there were a lot of sweaty neckbands in the O'Malley family because that almost didn't pass. O'Malley got a lot of Hollywood stars, movie stars, et cetera, to come on a telethon and to beg, plead, and beseech the voters there. They almost didn't get it, and they would have come back. My we were all very young when this went down. We were barely teenagers. But looking back, I always felt very bad about the fact that Ebbets Field didn't stay around a few more years and the Mets could have played there instead of the Polo Grounds, which by the way, Polo Grounds, while it's on my mind, before I forget, and I will, minute to minute I'll forget stuff, but while the Polo Grounds is in my mouth, let me just say this. I don't know if you guys saw, I'm pretty sure you did, my silent video of color video of the Brooklyn Dodgers taking the field at Ebbets Field on Facebook.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. There, at that website, there are other videos. That's not the only video. One of the videos at that website is also a silent video, a little bit longer than the Dodger one. The Dodger one is like 1 minute and 1 second. There's a New York Met one from 1962 of the Mets playing in the daytime at the Polo Grounds in 1962. There's video of Richie Ashburn, Duke Snyder. It goes on for over 2 minutes. And I'm going to post that next week or the week after if I remember to do so. I was astounded, simply astounded at the perfect grass and the perfect manicure of the Polo Grounds in 1962. And if I knew about this video a few years ago, Robert, I could have then proved to you, which took me about 2 years to prove to you,
I know exactly
that the outfield walls were gray. That the facades were all green. The facades were all green, but the outfield walls, the outfield fences at the Polo Grounds in 62 and 3 were in fact gray. And I will post that on some sort of, maybe on your New York Met Facebook page in the very near future. And you should see, there are no dirt spots, there are no bald spots in the infield or outfield in the grass. The grass is perfectly manicured in 1962. And it bugs me to this day that everybody said, well, they needed to go to Shea Stadium, which of course they did, let's face it. They really did. But the Polo Grounds was falling down. It was dilapidated. Robert Cole and I have a deceased friend. He died a couple of years ago. That used to argue, you know who I'm talking about, Robert?
Yeah, Donald.
Donald, right. And Donald used to swear that the Polo Grounds were in great shape in 1962 and 3, and everybody laughed at him at Baseball Fever and all that, because they read in 1,000 different places how run down and falling apart the Polo Grounds were. Not true.
No. Simply
not true. Wait until you see this video. You won't believe your eyes. You'll think it's like from 1949, but it's not. It's from 1962, and it's the New York Mets, and it's in perfect
can't wait to see
pristine condition. Yep. I'm sorry?
I can't wait to see it. I would love to see
okay.
it.
I'll send it out there. But anyway.
I'd like to get back. Okay, when you're done.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I wanted to get back to that Jackie Robinson trade.
Okay, we're listening to Ron Rabinovitz. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, in 1955, Jackie was playing left field one day, and a ball rolled past him and rolled all the way to the fence. He missed it. So we had dinner that night, and I said, Jackie, that was a tough play. He says, tough heck. He says, Ambrose would have had it. Sandy Ambrose, of course, was a rookie left fielder. Right. He was young and fast. And he said to me, Ronnie, he says, I want to tell you a secret that no one else knows except my own family, that next year might be my last year in baseball. He said, my legs are gone.
Right.
And the following year after that, he was traded to the Giants. And I was so devastated and so upset. And I wrote him a letter. And he wrote me back, and I'll read it to you right now.
Oh, great. Go ahead. Great.
My friend Ronnie, thanks so much for your nice letter. I was expecting to hear from you, and I'm so glad you did write. I too felt badly, Ronnie, but you will understand soon why I wasn't too disappointed. The Giants are closer to my home, so it is a break in that respect. I'm glad to hear that you lost some weight, Ronnie. It works too much of a hardship on a person when he carries too much, so keep it up. I know it will make you feel much better. Tell your father I am sorry about Stevenson, but I'm sure he would have fared better had the war not interfered. Again, Ronnie, thanks for your letter. It's friends like you that keep our morale up. Say hello to your mother and your sister also. I am sure we will see each other again soon. Perhaps you could come visit sometime if you are ever coming this way. Always, Jackie.
That's a beautiful, beautiful letter, Ron.
That one statement, that one thing, I too felt badly, Ronnie, but you will soon understand why I wasn't too disappointed.
There you go.
What's the date on that, Ronnie? Do you have a date on that?
I don't have a date on it. No.
Okay.
But it had to be probably in December. It had to be.
Yeah. What a beautiful, beautiful letter. That's, you know, you've read for me, personally, many letters from Jackie, and that one has to be one of the most touching, wonderful letters that you've read. That is just a great, great letter. You're so lucky.
Great.
You are a very fortunate man, Ronnie Rabinovitz.
Thank you. You talk about Japan. Here's a letter he wrote to me about Japan. Dear Ronnie, it was nice getting your letter. We have just returned from a nice trip to Japan, and the people over there changed our minds about a lot of things. It is the most friendly country I've seen, and I was amazed at the way we were received in every city. It's really nice getting letters from you because you always seem to have a nice word when it's needed. I guess everyone in the public's eye wants to have friends like you, and believe me, I am no exception. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your standing by me, and I only hope I can always be worthy of your friendship. I guess there wasn't much joy in your house as a result of the election, but I am sure Stevenson would have fared better if the war had not erupted. I don't know what is going to happen, but I'm sure we'll be okay with Ike. I don't know why I brought this up. I guess it's just my way of saying hi to your dad. Give my regards to your family. My children are well and moving right along. We are having fun getting the things we brought from Japan in order, and everyone enjoyed our gifts so much. I don't know if I'll be around next year, but I hope to. My legs are the big question, and they seem to be okay, so we are keeping our fingers crossed. Well, Ronnie, take care of yourself. I hope to see you real soon. Always, Jackie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Almost moved me to tears. Great letter.
Amazing. Yeah.
Great letter. Those games in Japan, you know, there's a website that I don't like to put out there too much because I don't like people to visit it, but there's one section of it that covers Japan really well, WalterO'Malley.com. It follows the Dodgers. It gives box scores. It gives home runs, winning pitchers, lineups, everything about every game they played that fall in Japan. Those were the final games. Those were the final games of Jackie Robinson
that he played.
He played.
That's right. That's right.
Now, here's an interesting thing about all that, too, okay? Towards the end of the 56 season, a lot of the veteran Dodgers were tired. They had a hard pennant race, didn't win the pennant until the last day. A lot of them did not want to go on that trip. A lot of them also had, bad feelings about Japan because they were in, the Second World War, including guys like Gil Hodges.
Right, it was only 9 years before that, right?
Right.
10 years, 11
years. A lot of them did not want to go. Okay. Walter O'Malley basically got Ford Frick, the commissioner, to threaten the players, and that if you didn't go, there'd be repercussions, and would hurt you in the long run. Okay.
Right.
Now Jackie, if he knew that he was going to retire, and I don't really think he was expecting to retire at the time. Okay, he did not want to go originally, but he was threatened, and he did go. Why would he have gone if he wasn't going to play again? Okay,
he's keeping his options open. That's all he was doing, was keeping his options open.
Right.
Didn't Bavesi have to pay? Not have to pay, but didn't he wind up paying Don Newcomb before they went to Japan? Okay. Newcomb said, "I'm not going," and Bavesi gave him whatever monies they were stipulated to earn over there. He gave it to him up front, and that's the only reason Newcomb went.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, of course, we know in Game 7, Nuke got knocked out early in the 7th of the World Series. He left the ballpark while the game was still on. Okay.
Right.
I forget the sports writer's name, but the sports writer went with Newcomb and Newcomb's father and drove back to their home in New Jersey. Newcomb went home and then disappeared. His wife had no idea where he was. He was out walking the streets all night long. He knew that he had to go to Japan the next day, the airport, or he was, being threatened with being suspended, from baseball.
Right.
He showed up in a wrinkled suit. He'd obviously been out all night, had booze on his breath, and he was demanding to be paid by Bavesi. Bavesi basically said, "Come on, let's get you on the plane. We need to get going." So they're on the plane, and Nuke was getting kind of loud, and he stood up. Now, Walter Alston, who was also a big man, stood up as well, and he thought Nuke was going to start problems, and he stopped and said, "Nuke, you need to sit down in your seat." And Newcomb said to him, "Walter, if you don't get out of my way, I'm going to piss on you. That's where I'm heading."
That's good. That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good story. That's a really good story. And you're right, by the way. No one who really knew Walter Alston was going to mess with him. No one.
He was a big man, and he was a tough man.
Big, tough guy. Quiet guy. Yeah. Quiet guy. But, boy, he was a tough guy. Yeah, he was a tough guy. And he was formidable. He was a well-put-together guy. Those stories are just
terrific. They're terrific.
They are terrific. They're really, really great memories and great things. I hate to tell people to write a book, but you know something, Robert Cole, you might you might come under the category. You should write a book.
Well, I actually am working on something.
There you go.
Something I'm working on, Ronnie, that you'll be interested in, okay?
What's that?
I'm researching Jackie's year in Montreal, 1946.
Great.
Yeah, a lot gets talked about Jackie, before, his service time with the Kansas City Monarch. Then everything's talked about, when he broke the color barrier in 1947. Well, he actually broke the color barrier in 1946.
46, right.
No one had played organized baseball. No black ball player had ever played organized baseball.
Right.
Okay? And when he played for Montreal in 1946, that's when it
Who was the black pitcher that they sent up there with him? John Wright?
John Wright was signed to Montreal. Okay? John Wright and Jackie played together in Montreal. Rickey had everything planned so well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And he was going to put him in Montreal, but he wanted Jackie to have a roommate, okay, that he would get along with. He also knew that some of the cities they went to, Jackie was going to have to stay away from the team hotel.
Right.
He wanted to be with somebody, so he had John Wright. And
it's very interesting, Robert Cole, that you mentioned the 1946 season of Jackie Robinson in the same sentence as writing a book. One of our guests, recent guests on this show, Alain Liebernoche from Canada, is doing much the same thing. Alain is, if you go to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network and go back and see the show, look for the show where Peter Trunk and Ron Rabinovitz talk to Alain, Alain, Liebernoche, Liver, Livernoche. He has C-H-E. He has a French Canadian accent that you might have to get past, but he told us about all of the things that he has collected over the last few years about Jackie and the 1946 Montreal Royals.
He's starting a museum.
Elaine and I have had some online conversations.
Have you?
Oh, good. Oh, good. Then
Good.
you're aware of him. That's great.
Yes. Yeah, because some of the stuff that
I'm friendly with him too. He's a great guy.
Yes. Some of the things I posted, pictures on the Facebook site. He's made some comments on. We've had some conversations about that. Yeah.
Right.
Good. Good. Yeah, he'd be a good resource.
Now.
Sort of a lost year, in Jackie's.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lost year. Everybody talks about 1947.
Right.
And rightfully so.
And he loved it. He loved it in Montreal.
Yeah.
He loved it. People loved him.
Getting back to our good friend Walter O'Malley, okay? In the 52, 53 range, O'Malley started throwing out hints that when Jackie was ready to retire, he wanted Jackie to go to Montreal to be the playing manager. And it was in the newspapers, it was reported, and, that was going to be. Okay, now, if O'Malley really wanted to make a name for himself, okay, he would have done just that. Jackie would have been the first black to manage and organize baseball.
Right.
I mean, O'Malley would have gotten a lot of credit. Yet O'Malley's hatred for Branch Rickey and anything that even hinted at Branch Rickey was so strong that he didn't want anything to do with Jackie.
Exactly.
When you go back even, when the Dodgers were going to move to Los Angeles, what better ball player to go back to Los Angeles than Jackie Robinson, who started UCLA, who lived
with his roots there in Pasadena and everything.
Exactly. And O'Malley was concerned at first when they moved out there that they would be received properly, and that's why he wanted all the old Brooklyn Dodgers to go there. Okay, what better guy to, bring back than Jackie Robinson? Yet his hatred, intense hatred for Branch Rickey and in turn for Jackie, forced him to get rid of Jackie before they went to California. I mean, that's just more of the great, stories.
Why was there such a hatred there, Robert? Why did he hate Branch Rickey so much?
Okay. Well, first of all, Branch was the face of the Dodgers.
Yes, he was.
O'Malley and John Smith were in the background. O'Malley just hated that. Okay, but that's the contract. That's the way it was set up. John Smith was in Branch Rickey's corner as far as baseball operations. John Smith said he doesn't understand how Branch Rickey did what he did, but he wouldn't interfere in anything to do with baseball operations. He stayed in the background. He made O'Malley stay in the background. After John Smith passed away, Rickey started, hearing and knowing that O'Malley was going to try to force him out. Okay, Rickey wanted to sell. Well, the agreement, the ownership agreement said that, you could go out and get your best offer, and then the other partners would have the right to match. And this was, the Smith family, Rickey, and O'Malley. So when O'Malley heard that, Branch was looking to sell, he said, okay, I will give you what you paid in, which was roughly $330,000. O'Malley knew that Rickey had no money per se. You know, Branch lived from paycheck to paycheck, basically. And he was offering him back, you know, the same money he put in, knowing that Rickey basically had mortgaged that original money to go in, and that money is going to go right back to the bank. Rickey, on the other hand, went out and got a separate buyer.
Zuckerman.
Okay. Zuckerman, right. And O'Malley, you know, felt that John Galbraith, the Pirates owner, okay, set this whole thing up. And that Zuckerman, you know, was not a real legitimate guy. Well, anyway, he offered Rickey $1 million for what O'Malley was offering $330,000 for.
Huh.
O'Malley felt that he'd been hornswoggled, you know, that it was all a setup, but he had to go ahead and, you know, pay that money. And from that day on, okay, you weren't even allowed to mention Rickey's name in the Dodgers.
And yet, wait a minute, Robert, you forgot the extra $50,000. $1,050,000.
Yeah.
What was the $50,000 for?
Well, Robert will explain it to you.
Yeah. Okay. The guy who made the offer, okay, put up money, and when he was turned down, he was given $50,000 in good faith money. Okay, and that was part of the agreement, the initial agreement. When that $50,000 check was cashed and went back to O'Malley, it was co-signed by Branch Rickey. In other words, it was given to Rickey, and Rickey put it in his bank account. So that, in essence, that good faith money went to Rickey as well. And that just, you know, burned O'Malley's ass. And from that moment on, anything to do with Rickey, you know, was hated. And
those are the specifics of some of the specifics of why O'Malley hated Rickey. The general reason was because Rickey was everything that O'Malley was not.
Wasn't right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
O'Malley couldn't shine Branch Rickey's shoes.
Right.
Or as we say,
when it came to even more than baseball, but let's just stick to baseball. Stick to baseball. Branch Rickey played baseball, coached baseball, played in the major league as a catcher. He played in the major leagues, Branch Rickey. He knew his oaths.
Yep.
Walter O'Malley, like Robert said 15 minutes ago, couldn't tell a ball player from the front or the back.
Right, exactly.
Walter O'Malley was in it for one reason and one reason only: the Benjamins.
Yep, that's right.
That's all it is.
And Jackie was aligned to Branch Rickey so much.
Yep.
And O'Malley hated
absolutely. Yeah. And the other thing going back to that, you know, the revisionists now claim that, you know, Walter O'Malley had as much to signing Jackie as Branch Rickey did, which is total nonsense.
That's not true.
No, absolutely total nonsense.
No.
But what really happened was everybody in baseball was against it. Okay, everybody thought that it was going to fail. Okay, except Branch Rickey. Even the Spinks, the publisher of the Sporting News, who was a racist, bar none. Okay, wrote stories in the Sporting News that, you know, the only reason why Jackie was getting a start in AAA was because of the fact that he was black and that Branch Rickey was trying to prove a point. He felt that, at best, Robinson should have been in D-ball. I mean, and these are documented stories in the Sporting News. So, but anyway, everybody was against it. O'Malley was sitting back expecting it to fail. Okay, O'Malley was with everybody else and didn't want it to happen. Okay, Rickey, you know, went to the bank, you know, where the Dodgers got a lot of their money, and the only other person that knew what he was doing was who I forget off the top of my head, the banker that handled the finances for the Dodgers. And Rickey was told at that time, Branch, if you're doing this, okay, to better the team, okay, get more wins, and bring in more dollars, then I'm all for it. But if you're only doing it for social reasons, then I say don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, Rickey had all kinds of pressure and heat on him, and yet, you know, he pulled that off. But, you know, it just absolutely makes me boil when I hear these revisionists trying to say now that, well,
right,
he was a part owner, so he must have had as much to do with, you know, signing
yeah.
Jackie Robinson as Rickey.
No
Untrue.
way. No way. Totally untrue.
So,
well, you know what?
oh boy.
We have oftentimes on this show is called A Tale of Two Cities, from Brooklyn to Los Angeles, and there have been times when this show had very little or zero Brooklyn content, and we went straight to the LA version of the Dodgers because they were in the playoffs or they were in the World Series, et cetera, et cetera. And the show was like 1% Brooklyn, 99% Los Angeles, and that happened more than a few times, really. So I think it's only apropos that we end tonight by not even mentioning the latest iteration of The Boys in Blue, and we just end it, and the show will be totally about the Brooklyn Dodgers tonight. And I want to thank both of you, Robert Cole and Ron Rabinovitz, my partners in crime here on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And I look forward to next week. We'll talk on social media in the meantime. And thank you, gentlemen, very much, and have yourselves a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Robert. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Ron. Take care.
Bye.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.